Hey guys, Tarke here, and I want to talk you through my new build. It is the Bow Block Gladiator. Now, before I get into the build, I just want to quickly just say I've literally just come from the hospital from my infusion. I've still got my tags on, still got my stuff on, so I'm going to be pretty out of it, and I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, and then I'm going to pass out. So if I mumble or whatever, just bear with it. Okay, so how does this build work? What gave me the idea? And what are the things you can play around with. Now, first off, there are two variants I'm going to cover in this build, but let's just go with the first initial idea. Now, the way that this build first came together was I've been wanting to play Gladiator for a long time, and as you know, with my last Explosive Arrow character, I was messing around with Rumi's and Rearguard, giving me a pretty nice block chance. Now, the main issue with Gladiator, and why Gladiator is limiting in a lot of builds, is the minor nodes. The notables are all amazing, but the minors are very, very limiting. You see its block chance while dual wielding or holding a shield. This cannot apply to Rearguard. Increased attack speed with one-handed weapons. This is generic. Generic block, generic damage, that's good. Again, block chance, attack speed with one-handed weapons. This is generic, that's good. This is, again, attack speed with one-handed weapons, damage with one-handed weapons, which is frustrating. This is all generic. This is all very powerful. Quick thing to note here. 25% chance to gain a frenzy charge on kill with main hand weapon. A bow or any two-handed weapon counts as being used in main hand, so we get frenzy charge generation on kill. We don't need to worry about running Blood Rage. 25% chance to gain endurance charge on kill with offhand. That we don't benefit from, which is whatever. 10% more physical damage while at maximum frenzy charges. Very easy to cap out frenzy charge with this build because that 25% on kill, meaning 10% more physical damage is obviously pretty juicy. And then 10% reduced physical damage taken while at maximum endurance charges, and I'll talk about endurance charges later. But we make use of the frenzy charge generation, 10% more physical, and the 10% reduced physical. So we make really good use out of that 2-pointer. These 2 points or these 2 points are sort of interchangeable. You can do what you want with them. This is nice in the fact that it's just 10% increased physical damage, just flat, so it will scale anything. It doesn't need to be with one-handed weapons. The attack speed is wasted though. And this is 25% chance to cause bleeding on hit with attacks. It's pretty good. 30% increased damage against bleeding enemies. Bleeding enemies you kill explode, dealing 10% of their maximum life as physical damage, and that will scale with any other phys scaling you have in the tree. So I was playing around with Rearguard, and I thought, you know what, I could probably make a capped out block bow character and still get achievable 6 to 7k life. The main weakness that a lot of Gladiator builds have is getting enough damage and enough life. They often you invest quite heavily into getting your block either capped or near cap, and then you sort of struggle to get above that sort of 6k threshold, because really, as I was saying in my last video, I feel like 6 to 6.5k is the minimum threshold you want for builds at the moment, in hardcore at least, because anything under that, you just get randomly one-shot. So this is sort of what I've come up with. For bows, I've decided to use a Doomfletch Prism, and I'll just bring it up on the PoE wiki. I should have done this beforehand, for anyone wondering what that does. Now, Doomfletch Prism is infamous for being a bow which just gives stupid amounts of damage with very little investment. So as you can see, implicit increased weapon elemental damage, add some flat fizz, add some attack speed, has very good crit chance, getting up to 7% is very juicy. Mana regens, whatever. Gain 110% of both physical damages, extra damage of each element. So if you have any flat fizz anywhere on your gear, that all gets scaled into elemental damage, and it's basically your physical damage is 330% elemental damage. So you get very efficient scaling. So the initial idea came from using Doomfletch Prism with Bringer of Rain. And Bringer of Rain gives you Socketed Gems supported by Melee Fizz, that's obviously wasted. Socketed Gems supported by faster attacks, that's good. Blind, that's good. Because a lot of these bow builds, they often have a 4 or 5 link single target setup, and I thought, what if I use Bringer of Rain? I could put my single target setup in the Bringer of Rain to get a 5 link with faster attacks and a utility blind link, which is just nice defense. I also get 20 to 30 flat physical damage, which scales incredibly well with Doomfletch Prism. And then I get a nice amount of armor evasion, 160 maximum life, endurance charge generation on block, and 6% extra chance to block. Now, the big downside is you can't use a chest piece, and also the Bringer of Rain itself has no resistances. So the main weakness of Bringer of Rain is you're often limited on supports, and you struggle with resistances because you can't use your chest for resists, and you can't use your helm for resists, meaning that your other pieces need to be much more well-rounded. Now, I'll go through one other important thing about the tree, which is what makes this kind of interesting, is we put a Lioneyes Fall jewel here. Lioneyes Fall makes all melee modifiers also apply to bows, and it is a medium radius, which is the second ring. So it would be this ring that I'm pointing at here. Now, the annoying thing about this is this node, this 12% node here, it's only like 40-45% in, so it doesn't count. Meaning that this won't get converted. If it did get converted, it'd make these points very, very efficient. But either way, all of that staff cluster gets converted to bows, and this melee cluster all gets converted to bows. So you get a lot of very, very juicy bow crit and crit multi. You also get fizz damage crit, fizz damage crit, fizz damage, 10% chance gain endurance charge on bow critical strike. So every time I crit, there's a 10% chance I generate an endurance charge. This obviously has amazing synergy with Outmatch and Outlast, because anyone who's played a bow build, fast attack speed, I will always be at max endurance charges. At max endurance charges, 10% reduced physical damage taken while at max charges. Just feels very, very good, man. We get a 15% increased fizz, obviously very good. Scales all of our flat physical with Doomfletch, also scales our bleed explosions. If you choose to take that 2-pointer. Whirling Barrier, 10% chance to gain a power charge when you block, 6% additional block chance. And because that then applies to bows, it's block that actually applies to bows. These two nodes you can also fill in. You'll see I capped the tree at 107. That's because there are a few things you can opt to put in. So you can opt to pick up these two nodes for additional block if you want it. You can also opt to get an endurance charge if you want it, and a few other things that I'll talk about later. You'll see you have 190% life. This jewel has to be a Lioneyes Fall, but you still have 1, 2, 3, 4 jewels, meaning life for this build is very, very achievable. You have Leech, you can fill in the Leech if you want to. Why don't I get all the Frenzy charges? Well, because of Outmatched and Outlast, you don't actually want to have a very high amount of either Frenzy or Endurance charges. It's actually better to have more Endurance charges than Frenzy charges in this build. Because we have a chance to generate Endurance charge on block if you use the Bringer of Rain, a chance to generate Endurance charge on every single crit we do, and the option to Enduring Cry, even on completely single target scenarios, it's very easy to maintain maximum Endurance charges, meaning that 10% reduced physical damage is nearly always active. How the juicy 10% more fizz, which scales all of our flat physical, which the Doomfletch then scales into elemental, that is much harder to maintain on pure single target without any ads about if, you know, you've got like 5, 6, or even 7 frenzy charges. So that's why I purposely don't pick up frenzy charges in the tree. You're more than welcome to pick them up and continue to pick them up at 90+. You'll notice that I do take Druidic Rite. It's like my go-to 2-pointer, which is in every single Tarke build. For 2 points, getting that 20% flask charges gain, 20% flask effectiveness is amazing. We are crit. We have a lot of crit. We have a lot of crit. Diamond Flask, easy crit cap. I might be able to get away with not using the Crit Strikes gem, but whatever. So this is kind of like the core version. And to give you a little bit more information, I'll refer to my glorious notepad. And that is all like variant 1, because there is a second variant to this to remember. And again, just had infusion, had a bunch of drugs, bit out of it. Sorry if this is all a bit haphazard. So the max block variant, it has more damage, less overall defense, and it's harder to itemize because of the gearing issue. Because we don't have the resists on both the helm and the chest, it means you need a lot of resists on your jewelry, and your jewelry is a very large source of your damage. Ideally, you want 2 steel rings with a bunch of flat fizz added on there, and a bunch of life, and some like crit multi, attack speed, all that good stuff. So then fitting in a bunch of really juicy resists is quite difficult. Same thing with the amulet. You'll also notice this build has very, very low int. So if you can get in on jewels, that helps. And if you can get int on your jewelry, that helps. So again, the Bringer of Rain version, it requires very good gear. And that is why I set up a second version which doesn't use the Bringer of Rain. Now, you'll notice I also don't go Pierce. The reason why I don't go Pierce is this isn't a poison build, so I don't have like any juicy double dipping from the drill mech, which immediately makes Pierce weaker. Also, I think that Pierce is kind of overrated and is still kind of in that everyone's still in the honeymoon period of LA Frostwall and builds aren't going back to Chain. The reason why people used to use Chain before that whole LA Frostwall thing became super meta is Chain has better map clear. So I've chosen to use Split Arrow. You can use Lightning Arrow, you can use Tornado Shot. The reason why I went with Split Arrow is I am using a Doomfletch. I didn't want to use both Chain and GMP, that's 2 less multipliers. So I'm going to try just doing Split Arrow, Crit, Chain. Another reason being I haven't played Split Arrow Chain since the beta for Act 4, so it's been a long time. I want to try out Chain with Split Arrow again. So you'll see that my links are Split Arrow, Chain, Wed, Crit Strikes. I'll see if I can get away with not running the Crit Strike gems, in which case run Critical Strike damage, Physical Projectile attack damage, and Faster attacks if you get the 6 link. This Core 5 link is fine. You do have the option of using Elemental Focus. I would rather not use Elemental Focus because I do use Herald of Ice, and I also like freezing things, and you know, it makes stuff like Porcupines much less of an issue. It also means that you can drop a Mortal Call out of your cast on damage taken setup if you want to. Because you have so much block, because you have so much life, because you freeze Porcupines, you don't need to really worry about them that much, and that's the main reason build to use a Mortal Call. And because you can get away with not really using a Mortal Call in your cast on damage taken setup, it means that maintaining your max endurance charges is also a lot easier. For single target, you can use Barrage or Blast Rain. The advantage of Barrage is Barrage with a +2 additional arrows helm will do more damage than Blast Rain, but because this isn't a Pierce build, Blast Rain has much nicer quality of life in the fact that if you're fighting a boss which spawns adds, for example, going back to my favourite boss, the Volcano boss, it has all the shitty little mini totems around it, or just generally a case of you want to kill something tanky which has 1 or 2 things in the way, Barrage without Pierce could often be awkward to hit it, whereas with Blast Rain, you can attack sort of near off-screen with it, you can play a lot safer, and it will always just hit the things in the area. So I think I'll use Blast Rain, but Barrage will do more damage, so either or. Wed, Crit Strikes, Physical Projectile attack damage. Because it's in the Bring of Rain, it does also benefit from fast attacks and Blind. Blind gives really nice defense. With both Barrage and Blast Rain, it will apply very easily. Faster attacks, just pure quality of life. For cursing, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, curse on hit, Assassin's Mark. The reason why we go with Assassin's Mark is we are a crit build. It's a nice way to generate power charges. We do have a chance to generate power charges on block, but that isn't too reliable. This just means that you always readily have power charges while just running maps, all that good stuff. Then you can do cast on damage taken and Mortal Call. You don't have to run it if you don't want to. Arctic Armour and Vaal Haste. If you drop the cast on damage taken and Mortal Call, I'd probably recommend putting in Increased Duration and then Vaal Lightning Trap or Decoy Totem. Or if you want to keep a cast on damage taken set up and not use a Mortal Call, you can do Arctic Breath, GMP, all of that good stuff. The reason why we go with Arctic Armour and Double Herald gives very easy cursing. Arctic Armour just gives really nice defense. It offers mitigation. I really like the Chilled Ground. It's just super, super undervalued. Missing Blink Arrow, put it in a 6-socket 5-link, or run a single Herald plus Grace or Haste if you're running double 6-links. Well, 1 6-link and a Bring of Rain. Single Herald and then Grace or Haste, you know, is fine in comparison to double Herald. The nice thing about double Herald is Herald of Ice is very good for cursing general map clear, whereas Herald of Lightning is better for cursing like tanky rares and bosses. So just pick whichever one you prefer. To work out the like total block chance, Rearguard itself gives 24% block if you get a max roll. Same with the Rumi's Concoction, 20%. The Staff nodes with Lioneyes Fall give 6 to 10%. Bring of Rain itself gives 6%. Painforged, which is the Gladiator node, gives 8% block if you were damaged in the last 4 seconds. You can also craft 2% block from a level 7 Haku. This will put you at 66 to 70% block and 75% spell block. If you look at Versatile Combatant, 100% of your block chances apply to spells. We already get some flat spell block from both the Rearguard and the Rumi's Concoction. So our 66 to 70% block gets added on to like a pre-existing like 20% spell block, because that's why we have capped spell block. If you do want to reach block cap, but it really isn't necessary, like, it really isn't necessary. If you think about it this way, most, like, acro dodge builds do perfectly fine running just 40 and 40 or 50 and 50 if they push it up a bit. Al Kaiser recently uploaded a guide to the Gladiator build he's been playing, and I believe he was only 50 and 50% block. Being at 70% block and 75% spell block is good enough. You don't need to push it. If you do want to push it, though, the Red Nightmare. The Red Nightmare is a upgraded unique jewel that drops off Cheula. The base version is the Red Dream. Passives granting fire resistance or all resistance in radius also grant chance to block at 35% of its value. So, for example, if you had 100 fire res in the radius, just theoretically, you would then get 35% additional block chance from it. This also comes with 5% of fire damage's extra chaos and endurance charge generation on kill, equal to the total fire res or all res in the radius. So again, if you can afford it, it's stupid expensive. It's like 400 odd chaos in hardcore at least. There's only ever like one for sale. It's like, as I say here, we're talking dying sun money. You can do it if you want to cap out block, get more endurance charge generation, get some extra chaos damage, but it really isn't needed and it's very expensive. The best place for it is here. If you put it here, you get access to a bunch of juicy resistances here. You also have the option of getting some resistance here and some resistance here. If you can fit it in here, you can very, very easily cap out your block. You can drop some of the other source of block that we do get to make things easier, so on and so forth. So this is like the version 1, really high damage, more block-centric, but very expensive to gear because you need the perfect steel rings with crazy resistances. And then this is the version I'm going to play. So this is actually a hybrid block and dodge build. It has more defense, easier gearing, more links, but it has less damage because it is missing that flat 20 to 30 in the headpiece. Instead of using Bring of Rain, we use the Perfect Form. The Perfect Form is my go-to favorite chess piece of the league, and again, I'll just bring it up for anyone wondering what it is. It's just a really undervalued, incredibly cheap item. We don't know what's happening with breach items going to next league, so I really recommend you use it while you can. It gives a decent amount of flat evasion, up to 80 maximum life, minus 30 cold res. We've been using lightning coil for a long time. Minus 30 really is nothing. 5 to 10% increased dexterity. This scales all of our dex, gives us more evasion, stop spamming me on BattleNet. It also gives us more accuracy, really solid. 100% reduced Arctic Armor mana reservation basically gives you a free Arctic Armor. It also means that you can use support gems on your Arctic Armor and it doesn't matter at all. And the most important one, evasion rating is increased by uncapped cold resistance. Well, second most important one. Basically what this means is if you have a total of 200% cold resistance, it takes all of your evasion and scales it by 200%. It's very, very easy to hit 20 to 30k evasion just from using the Perfect Form, Grace, and a little bit of evasion on your gear. And then Phase Acrobatics. So it also gives you 30% spell block. So basically what we get to do is we get to be a very block-centric build, throw in the Perfect Form, get a whopping 20 to 30k evasion, just boom off the bat, and then also get 30% spell dodge. And the availability to invest in like at Zeri's Step with the easier resistances we now have on our gear, and then get even more spell dodge. It's like ridiculous, and this is why this is the version that I'm going with, and I'm recommending for anyone who doesn't have like perfect steel rings floating about. Again, using Split Arrow with Chain, again Barrage or Blast Ring for single target. Because we get more links, we do use Ellie Focus on our single target. The reason we don't use Ellie Focus on our AoE setup is again for proccing our Herald. It is a really nice support gem just from raw DPS. You can test it out in your general clear if you want to. But, you know, for general clear, you'll have enough damage to shock things. You won't have enough damage to shock bosses, but you have enough things to shock just general rares and white mobs. So that kind of makes up for the missed damage on the Ellie Focus. The freeze is really a nice quality of life. The Ignite is really nice. This is assuming 6 socket 5 links, run Blink, Arrow, and Grace in the missing ones. Cast when damage taken, Arctic Breath GMP, so a level 1 cast when damage taken. So when I do get hit, I shoot out a bunch of chilled ground. And Enduring Cry, just in the floating socket. Again, it's just an easy way to make sure I'm always staying at capped out endurance charges. Frenzy, Herald of Ice, Curse on Hit, Assassin's Mark. I just don't run double Herald, because I run Herald, Grace, and Arctic Armor, because I get the free Arctic Armor from the Perfect Form. But having my Frenzy in the Herald device as well, it means that for a single target, if I want to curse with Assassin's Mark, I can tap it with a Frenzy. It's also a nice way of making sure I'm staying at my maximum Frenzy charges, meaning that I'm getting that 10% more physical damage. And then Arctic Armour, Vaal Lightning Trap, increased duration, Vaal Haste in boots or wherever. Arctic Armour also benefits from the increased duration. Vaal Lightning Trap is so underrated. It is absolutely amazing. It's so good, Mathful uses it. Like, if Mathful uses something, it's PogChamp. Really, really good. It gives us a nice way of shocking super tanky bosses and rares that we normally wouldn't be able to. Vaal Haste just gives us zoom, attack, and movement speed. Just PogChamp Arena. With Acrobatics and the Perfect Form, again, with Acrobatics, because you'll notice I kept the points at 107, and Acrobatics is at 2 points, where if you want to go... I struggle with words. If you want to go the sedatives kicking, full defense, just like raw, most overall mitigation defense, you actually want to get Acrobatics for 2 points. The reason being is Acrobatics gives a 30% less chance to block spells and attacks. So if you have, for example, 70% block chance, 30%, it's not like reducing that 70 to 40. You have to like do multiplications and stuff, which I did when I was much more awake. You will have roughly, this is assuming the values that I previously stated, so this is assuming 64% block chance, 43% block, 62% spell block, because you have to remember our spell block is overcapped. We have something like 85 or 86% spell block. So 43% block, 62% spell block, 30% dodge, 30% spell dodge, and 25 to 30k evasion. That is a lot of mitigation. You have the option of running Vaal Grace on top of that if you want to. You have the option of using a Quartz Flask on top of that if you want to. You have the option of using Itziri's Step on top of that if you want to. Without Acrobatics, this is probably what I'll try using, at least just to start. You will have 60 or 64% block, depending on if you pick up these 2% block nodes in the Staff cluster. 75% spell block, 30% spell dodge, and again 25 to 30k evasion. And as I say, this can be pushed higher with its Zero Step, which gives up to 16% spell dodge, I want to say, and a Quartz Flask, which can give 10% of both. For Bandits, you want Oak for the flat HP, Oak again for the physical damage. The physical damage percentage, it scales all your Doomfletch damage, which scales your elemental damage. If you choose to go for Gratuitous Violence, also scales the bleed. You don't have to go to Gratuitous Violence. I want to test it out. You can also do Violent Retaliation. Violent Retaliation is better in the version which is just block focused and doesn't have all this high evasion and dodge. The reason being is it gives 8% increased physical damage for each hit you've blocked recently, and this stacks. So if you're swamped by mobs, say it's Breach, because, you know, it's Breach League, you're constantly blocking, this gets ridiculously high very, very quickly. Another thing to note is each buff counts as a separate buff. So if you use the Mantra of Flames unique jewel, which gives flat fire damage based on each buff you have, in combination with this, you get shit tons of flat fire damage. Just something to keep in mind. Also, 4% increased movement speed for each hit you've blocked recently. Again, this just goes stupidly high. And 80% increased physical damage if you've blocked a hit from a unique enemy recently. So if you're doing the Bring of Rain version, I would recommend this more. If you're focusing more on dodge and evasion, this obviously loses some value because you're going to be blocking less and dodging and evading more often, in which case Gratuitous Violence pulls ahead. These two are both sort of your Uber Lab thing first. You just focus on Painforged, Interversatile Combatant, and then pick this up and Merc, and then practice between these two, see whichever one you prefer based on the variants that you're playing. For Merciless, you could technically go with any bandit, because we do use Frenzy charges, we do use Endurance charges, and we do use Power charges. I feel like I'm going to have enough crit that 3 power charges will be enough. It's also difficult to maintain 4 power charges on pure single target in, for example, a Uber Lab scenario or any kind of scenario where you have to enter a room and there's a boss by itself, like Crematorium, for example, or just anything where you have to use portals because it's a difficult fight. The power charge loses its value. We'll have enough crit for base mapping, and we'll just have enough crit anyway. So I would probably recommend not going with Alira. Oak gives you another endurance charge. Endurance charges are very easy to generate and maintain in this build, and that's why I prefer it to the Frenzy charge, because the Frenzy charge, we're only getting that on kill or from Frenzy Curse on hit. I don't like pre-ramping damage too hard when it comes to a boss. When the boss comes, I'm happy dropping a totem, dropping Vaal Lightning Trap, and then unloading all of my damage. I don't want to drop a totem, drop Vaal Lightning Trap, get 4 or 5 Frenzy charges, then drop another Vaal Lightning Trap, then do my damage. At that point, it's just like, no, screw that. Just go for Oak or Illyra. Boom. For your Flask setup, you have a few options. This is the setup I'm probably going to use. This is hardcore centric. A Life Flask. One thing I will probably try and do is I'll probably try and get the very high chaos resistance so that I can do what I did with my Explosive build where I used the Forbidden Taste. Forbidden Taste, again, my new favorite item. Simon will be proud, he used to use it a lot. Is a unique Quartz Flask. Again, notice how we're doing heavy dodge things, which gives 10% chance to dodge attack, 10% chance to dodge spell damage during effect, and recover 75% of your maximum life on use. Boom, basically a full heal. 8% of maximum life taken as chaos damage per second. Because we get Frenzy Charge generation on kill, we don't need to run Blood Rage, and we do have 4.4% life regen. So it will be very easy to run a Forbidden Taste with about 20 to 30% positive chaos resistance and not notice the degen at all. You don't have to do it. I'm trying to fit it in just because I already have a lot of dodge and spell dodge, and getting that extra little 10% on top with its Zeri step, you're then looking at something like 60 to 70% block, capped spell block, then like capped spell dodge or near capped spell dodge. That's pretty good, and that's in the non-acro version. In the acro version, where your block and dodge is very even, the Quartz Flask becomes even better, because then you've got like 43% block, 62% spell block, 40% dodge, 56% spell dodge, and that's without Vaal Grace. You pop Vaal Grace as well, it's like, oh shit. So for this version, it's really, really solid. But anyway. What else is there to mention? Whoops. And yeah, sorry, say Flask we were talking about. So Life Flask, either just a standard seething, bubbling, or Forbidden Taste. Rumi's, it's a granite. For the non-acro version, it's even better because you just get a bunch of flat armor. It gives you that block chance. Basalt Flask, this is like the optional flask. We have the endurance charges, which give us flat physical mitigation. We also have the flat physical mitigation from Outmatched and Outlast, meaning if you wanted to drop the Basalt and put in, for example, it's Zeri's Promise, because our build does a lot of flat fizz and a lot of elemental, you benefit from the both physical extra chaos and the elemental extra chaos. Getting the extra leech is nice, getting the chaos resistance is nice, especially if you're also using Forbidden Taste. You can use Taste of Hate also, but it's like we already have a lot of physical mitigation. So having the Basalt makes you super tank God mode, but you can probably drop it. Diamond Flask is what ensures us being at crit cap, and then Quicksilver. You can also drop the Quicksilver if you don't want to run a Quicksilver, but we're a bow build. We use Blink Arrow. We're not Whirling Blades everywhere. You kind of need the Quicksilver. Like, people who drop Quicksilvers in bow builds are really screwing yourselves over, because the thing with Blink Arrow is it's an amazing movement skill. In my opinion, the best movement skill in the game because it's actually balanced. Blink Arrow off screen, Quicksilver, run super fast. Blink Arrow off screen, Quicksilver, run really fast. It feels good, man. You want to have freeze removal. I like it on Life Flasks. Bleed removal on a utility. Movement speed on your Quicksilver. You can also do evasion percentage. This scale's incredibly powerful with the perfect form. Or shock immunity or curse immunity. But yes, that is the total build. So again, Doomfletch Prism. I missed my finger. Rearguard. Either the perfect form or Bring of Rain. Loads of flat fizz. Loads of Ellie deeps. Crit things. Block things. 6 to 6.5k life. Again, 190% life. Boom. One other thing. Jewels. You can really tell that I've been Tesla, can't you? This is what the perfect jewel would look like. It wouldn't have all of these stats, but it would have some combination of these stats. So the things which scale our damage. Increased physical damage with bows. You want increased maximum life on all of your jewels. We are a life build. We play in hardcore. If you play in softcore, don't worry about it as much. Just generic increased physical damage, global critical strike chance, global critical strike multiplier. If you can get crit multi on your duels, go for it. It's often very cheap. Generic, just increased damage. Again, it scales everything. Increased attack speed with bows, int, total elemental resistances. I throw int in there because our tree does need int to run our Herald. It also needs int for our Assassin's Mark. And having a little bit, like, the odd, like, if you're having a 4 stat duel and one of those stats is int, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's good, it's cheap, people don't value it that highly. It makes your gearing a lot easier. And again, with total elemental resistances, any resists you can just passively get means you can be greedier when it comes to your steel rings. It means crafting them is much easier if you're self-crafting using essences, or if you're buying them off other people. And just get any sort of combination of these 4 or 3 stats and you'll be fine. I bought a bunch of these jewels yesterday and they were all kind of like, they all had at least 6% increased maximum life. They all had crit multi or generic increased damage and some resist, and they were like 4 to 5 chaos each. You can get some really juicy jewels. But anyway, I'm Tarke, I'm exhausted, I need to pass it out. It will probably be about 2 to 3 days for me to get this character up into action. I can make 1 or 2 videos of like leveling updates, how I'm finding the builds as it's going. But if there isn't a video on the channel for the next day or 2, it's because I'm leveling and I'm recovering from the hospital. Thank you for the patience. One other quick update on the graphics card. I'm getting a Asus 1070. It's been ordered today. Again, very briefly, for anyone wondering why it took so long, one of my best childhood friend's brother is a computer technician. He does computer stuff. He has a kid. He doesn't live in London. He commutes down to London. He lives in the north or something. And he's always been my go-to computer guy. He built my rig. He built my old rig. He's built all of my friends' rigs. He's a really cool guy. He doesn't charge us anything. When I had the graphics card issues, he came. He took out my faulty graphics card, put in an old one. It works. You know that I can't record the good gameplay, unfortunately, but it works. I can use it. I can play with it. There was then a bunch of issue with warranty people. That's all been sorted now. That's all been done. It's been ordered. It will probably arrive in about a week to 2 weeks. And the next time Oliver is down in London, once the graphics card is here, we'll slap it in. By that point, also, I've had my second infusion. Normally they're every 8 weeks, because I've just started the treatment again today. I'll have my next one in 2 weeks, then in 6 weeks. By that point, I'll sort of be hopefully balanced health-wise. So actually, while it has been annoying that it's taken this long for everything to get sorted, it's been quite good, because it's mean that I've been able to focus on the YouTube content, which I think you guys are enjoying, and thank you for putting up with it. And it's also let me focus on my health a bit. So in probably, let's say the end of the month, start of February, we'll be able to make the guides on the channel actually have some proper gameplay, make them a lot more interesting, and we'll also be able to stream and all of that good. If you have any suggestions, queries, or general hellos, then let me know. I'm going to do my outro again. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Bye-bye.